The Polish People's Republic was a state in Central Europe that existed from 1947 to 1989 and the predecessor of the modern Democratic Republic of Poland. With a population of approximately 37.9 million inhabitants near the end of its existence, it was the most populous state of the Eastern Bloc after the Soviet Union. Having a unitary Marxist-Leninist communist government, it was also one of the main signatories of the Warsaw Pact. The People's Republic of Poland represented an era of many paradoxes. On the one hand, the reconstruction of the country from war damage was accompanied by enormous social enthusiasm. On the other, it was impossible to escape the intensified party propaganda of success, and the scale of persecution by the security service was unprecedented. The average inhabitant of the People's Republic suffered the consequences and limitations resulting from the inefficiency of nationalized industry. However, it was also a time of great creativity and resourcefulness.
In today's episode, I'm with Artur Górniewski at the Museum of PRL in Warsaw, and we will be discussing the history of the communist times in Poland. Hello, Artur, and welcome again to Poland Daily Culture.
Hi, Paula. It's a pleasure of mine to be invited again. It will be a pleasure of mine to answer your questions, to tell you about this period of time in our history.
Thank you. So what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the communist times?
Well, tough story, very important one. And these are the moments of two generations in our history that really checked us as a Polish people, as a Polish nation. If we are that much determined, if we are that much stubborn to have our independent country on planet Earth. And I think that we passed this test. But there were many moments and aspects of communist Poland that are felt and are affecting our nation till nowadays. So look, we thought that the worst moments in our history were World War II times. So actually these are the moments that somehow united our nation, united our country, because the enemy was obvious at these days. But then after World War II, after it turns out that Poland becomes a satellite country of Soviet Russia, on one hand we are an independent country when we look at the map. But on the other hand, we are having another government controlling us because we are behind the Iron Curtain. But this is something that Polish people didn't know right at the beginning. So look, first, these moments that we are talking through, all these episodes, so moments when we lost the independence to Russia, Prussia and Austria in 1795, and then we got back the independence. Then there is this very clear moment when Poland got back the independence in 1918, and our culture is going back on the track. So like we were talking before, Polish gentleman was dressing up like a Londoner, Polish lady was dressing up like a lady
Parisian.
from Parisian, from Paris, Coco Chanel, stuff and things. And then World War II comes. Very, very difficult moments in our history. And then 1945, the war ends, we get back our independence. And this is a moment when my great-grandfather becomes a head teacher in a school, and he's responsible for counting the votes. So we are voting what will be our government like. So he was involved in literally counting the votes. And then he gets to know on the news that more than 90% of Polish society voted on a communist party in a moment when he knows that
It's
more
not
than
true.
10 or maybe 20% voted on this party. So this is how you were getting to know that something else is happening than you are thinking.
So this is the beginning of propaganda.
This is the beginning of something new. Now we must remember that there are two sides of this story. 80% of German losses during World War II after 1941, after the moment that Adolf Hitler attacked Joseph Stalin, were lost because of Russians. So they really took the price. They really sacrificed a lot. Russians and Chinese people, biggest sacrifices during World War II. About 20 million of Russians were killed during World War II. So now Joseph Stalin is given his prize, this part of the world, up to Berlin. It belongs to Joseph Stalin, so he wants these lands. We must remember that World War II victory of Russia is undoubted when it comes to historians. And now, what will you feel like when you are a Polish citizen after World War II? So do you think this way? Or do you feel like you are living in 100% independent country? Which direction will you go? Because it turns out that if you were fighting against the German forces during World War II and Russian government finds it out, then you have a very big problems. Because why did you fight? Now this is a part of propaganda I will be telling at the moment. Why did you fight against the Germans if great Russians came to help you out? So we are in between the rock and the hard place as a Polish people for 44 years. And this is the first thing that comes to my mind. I was 2 years old when communism ended, so I cannot remember much personally, but I didn't have to make very difficult choices that Polish people had to do in here while communist occupation, because every single Polish man had to make a decision if they are cooperating with the communist government or they are not. If you decide not to cooperate with the communist government, then undoubtedly you are making a heroic decision. You are once again fighting for your independence, but you may be suffering for nothing as well, because you don't know how it will be. So maybe you will sign the documents, maybe you will cooperate with the communist government, but this is how you are becoming a sort of traitor, because you are officially against the Polish nation. You are looking for people who are not on the Russian side, but maybe you will sign the documents so to be like a wolf in sheep skin for the communist government. So we are having so many aspects that I wanted to present at the beginning of our conversation. And now what path will you choose?
I would like to just put it in a time phrase for people who maybe don't know how long the communist times lasted. So if you could tell us just how many years it was, and that it was just very recent that it ended actually, and how Poland has developed since then.
Perfect. 1945 is a moment when World War II ended, and we are having this celebration of reborn Poland. And it takes place on 22nd of July 1945. So 22nd of July is a new date that appears in our history. Then on 22nd of July, the Constitution Square that we are next to is opened, 1952. 1955, the Palace of Culture and Science, 22nd of July. 22nd of July, 1953, the first section of the Old Town is opened where Mr. Bierut announces it. So 22nd of July starts to be a very important date for the communist government, and I will tell you why. Because on 22nd of July 2007, we are having Constitution of Napoleon adopted in here, which was like the new beginning of Poland. So from the very beginning, communist government knew that they wanted to establish the new beginning in here. And it lasted till 1989. So to answer
30 years
your question,
ago.
44 years. So it ended 2 years after Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. So these are the periods of time that we are talking about.
And 2 years after you were born.
Yes, I was born exactly in the year when Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Yes, there is more and more I got to know when it comes to this amazing period of time that till nowadays affects us, our life. Sometimes we are conscious, sometimes not that much when it comes to this everyday life.
So what is an example of that?
Oh, for instance, I can see that when it comes to current development in capitalist companies, and I worked for some capitalist companies here in Poland, in Warsaw, I can face two different attitudes to different generations. So for us, people who were born, let's say, after 1980, so people who were growing up capitalist world, we understand capitalist roles. So, for instance, if I want to work, I understand that I must bring an income to the company that will make it worth hiring me. But in communist days, unemployment rate equaled 0. So there was a very popular statement during communist days. It doesn't matter if you stand, like when you work, or you lay down, you are supposed to be given 1,000 zloty anyways. So it would be enough for your everyday products, everyday needs. Aren't these two totally different points of view that were somehow adopted by people who were growing up in communist days, and now the world has changed. Now capitalism has came totally opposite. Communism was about bringing equality to society. Everyone was supposed to have a job, unemployment rate 0. And in the capitalist world that we know, we must work a lot.
Fight for ourselves.
Fight for ourselves, because no one will have mercy if we will be not efficient in our jobs.